One day, you look in the mirror and something feels different. It's not just the gray hairs or the wrinkles. It's that quiet, nagging thought in the back of your mind. Am I getting old? You think back to your last doctor's visit. The lab results weren't so great. Blood sugar is creeping up. Cholesterol isn't what it used to be. And your doctor tells you, it's not that bad. It happens to most people your age. But that phrase, most people your age, sticks with you. What does that even mean? It's when the aches show up more often, when fatigue lingers longer, and when brain fog starts clouding your thoughts. It's not that life has suddenly become terrible. It's just different. Not like it used to be. That's usually the moment many people realize it's time to make some changes. Changes that can help slow things down while there's still time. So today, let's talk about the top 10 foods to eat after you've reached the age of 50. You see, most of us grow up feeling pretty much invincible. Through our teens and even into our 20s, our bodies carry us forward without much effort. Up to age 30, it feels like a free ride. You can eat what you want, stay up late, bounce back easily. But after 50, things really start to change. Imagine this. If we chart your vitality on a graph, with age along the bottom and energy along the side, the line climbs during childhood and adolescence. You reach your peak at around 25, maybe holding steady for a few years. But after 30, the decline begins. By the time you hit 50, you're on the downward slope, and this is when you start noticing the early signs of aging. Now, the goal isn't to try to stop aging entirely. We don't know how to do that yet. The goal is to slow it down. With the right lifestyle and dietary choices, you can make that slope much gentler. Instead of rapid decline, you can extend vitality far longer, delaying those symptoms of aging well into later years. But here's what most people don't realize. After 50, certain changes happen in the body quietly, almost unnoticed. Muscle mass starts to decline, unless you're very physically active. Collagen and elastin, the building blocks of skin, cartilage, and bone, begin to diminish. That means stiffer joints, weaker skin, and more aches. And perhaps most importantly, your body becomes more insulin resistant. Even if you're not overweight or diabetic, your body is less able to process carbs the way it once did. The foods you ate at 30 without consequence can now push you toward weight gain, fatigue, and blood sugar problems. On top of that, oxidative stress and chronic low-grade inflammation build up in the body. This kind of silent fire drives degenerative diseases and speeds up aging. That's why the foods you choose after 50 matter so much. You need foods that fight inflammation, support muscle and brain health, and stabilize blood sugar. So let's get into them. Food number 1 is salmon, or other fatty fish like sardines. These are loaded with essential omega-3 fatty acids, especially EPA and DHA. Fatty fish are the richest natural source of these nutrients, and they offer huge benefits as you age. They calm down inflammation, which is a root driver of so many chronic diseases. They support brain health because your brain is literally built out of DHA. In fact, research shows DHA levels are directly linked to the rate of brain shrinkage as you age. People with higher DHA maintain better memory and experience slower neurological decline. The sad truth is, most people today don't eat enough fish. Processed foods dominate our diets, and omega-3 deficiency is incredibly common. If you're not eating fatty fish at least 3 times a week, then a high-quality fish oil supplement is almost non-negotiable. Food number 2 is avocados. Avocados are a nutritional powerhouse. They're rich in potassium and monounsaturated fats, which are especially good for your heart. Potassium helps your blood vessels stay elastic and flexible, reducing the workload on your heart and helping you maintain healthy blood pressure. They're also packed with fiber and very low in net carbs. That's incredibly important after 50, because as your carbohydrate tolerance decreases, you need foods that won't spike insulin and blood sugar. Avocados help stabilize insulin, which in turn reduces the risk of diabetes and metabolic syndrome. Avocados don't just help with insulin stability. They also create less of a spike in blood sugar, which means fewer crashes in energy. They improve the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, A, E, and K, as well as carotenoids like beta-carotene, which the body converts into vitamin A. Food number 3 is cruciferous vegetables. Think broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, cauliflower, cabbage, and arugula. And honestly, there are many more. So if you want variety in your diet, it's a great idea to explore them all. These vegetables contain powerful compounds that support your liver's natural detoxification system. Why is that important? Because your liver is in charge of metabolizing and breaking down hormones like estrogen and testosterone. Every hormone in your body has a half-life. It's only supposed to be active for a certain period of time. Then your liver steps in to break it down, keeping your hormones balanced. When you eat enough cruciferous vegetables, you're giving your liver the tools it needs to do this job well. This becomes especially important during menopause for women and for prostate health in men. Cruciferous vegetables are also rich in antioxidants, which help your body control inflammation and oxidative stress, two of the biggest drivers of aging and chronic disease. Food number 4 is pastured eggs. Now, I don't mean pasteurized eggs. I mean pastured, as in eggs laid by hens that live outdoors, on grass exposed to sunshine, with the freedom to roam and eat a natural diet. Pastured eggs are a completely different food from the typical eggs you find in factory farming operations. They're rich in choline, lutein, and zeaxanthin, which are all crucial for brain health, memory, and nerve signaling. They also protect your vision as you age. Eggs also support the production of acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that plays a central role in learning and memory. On top of that, they contain DHA, the same brain-supportive fat we discussed with salmon. While eggs don't have as much DHA as fatty fish, they still provide a valuable source. Here's something most people don't realize. Cholesterol itself is vital for your brain. Very low cholesterol levels are actually linked to a dramatically increased risk of dementia. So when you eat good quality eggs, you're not just nourishing your muscles, you're nourishing your brain. But there's a key point here. You need to eat the whole egg, not just the whites. Why? Because almost all the vitamins and essential fats are in the yolk. And in order to use the protein from the egg efficiently, your body needs the combination of amino acids from both the yolk and the white together. Now, let's compare quality. A hen raised in the sunshine, eating grass, bugs, and seeds, produces a very different egg than a hen locked in a cage, pumped with hormones, never seeing daylight. The nutrient difference is staggering. Pastured eggs contain 2 to 3 times more omega-3 fats like EPA and DHA. They can have 3 to 6 times more vitamin D, twice as much vitamin E, and up to 7 times more beta-carotene, which gives yolks their rich golden color. In contrast, eggs from confined hens often look pale and weak. Some producers even add beta-carotene to the hen's feed artificially, just to make the yolks appear more vibrant. But you can't fake the overall nutrient profile. Pastured eggs are simply superior. Do you want to open a pastured egg? You'll notice the yolk looks richer, darker, more vibrant. That golden color comes from higher levels of beta-carotene. Now, some industrial farms try to trick you by feeding their hens beta-carotene just to darken the yolk. But here's the truth. That doesn't affect the other nutrients at all. It's just for show. With pastured eggs, the real magic is inside. You'll find twice as much lutein and zeaxanthin, 2 antioxidants that are absolutely critical for eye health. They help protect your vision as you age. That's why, if you can possibly afford it, I strongly suggest investing in pastured eggs. At the end of the day, you either invest in health now, or you end up paying for disease later. Food number 5 is bone broth. Bone broth is one of the most ancient and healing foods we have. When you simmer bones for hours, sometimes even days, you extract valuable nutrients like glycine, collagen, and proline. These are compounds your body uses to rebuild connective tissue, your joints, your cartilage, your tendons, even your gut lining. That's why bone broth is so supportive for healthy joints, skin, and digestion. As we age, our collagen naturally declines, leading to stiffer joints and thinner skin. Bone broth helps replenish those building blocks. It also reduces inflammation, which is a key driver of osteoarthritis. You know that stiffness in the morning, or the thick, clumsy feeling in the fingers as they start to swell? That's part of unhealthy aging. Regular bone broth can help slow that process. And interestingly, the amino acid glycine, found abundantly in bone broth, has also been shown to improve sleep quality for many people. Food number 6 is berries. Now, berries are nature's little antioxidant bombs. They're rich in compounds like polyphenols and anthocyanins, which reduce oxidative stress and inflammation. But they don't just work generally, they specifically protect the brain. Berries have been shown to slow down cognitive decline, improve memory formation, and support signaling between brain cells. They even help improve circulation, which is so important for brain and heart health as you get older. And here's the bonus. Berries can satisfy your sweet tooth without wreaking havoc on your blood sugar. But there's a catch. You still don't want to overdo them, and you want to understand which berries are safest in terms of sugar content. That brings us to an important topic, glycemic control. Once you pass 50, your metabolism slows and your insulin sensitivity decreases. In other words, your carbohydrate tolerance goes down. The foods you could eat in your 30s without any issue can now spike your blood sugar and insulin. Even if you exercise, your body just doesn't handle carbs the same way. That's why shifting to a lower carb, lower glycemic diet is so crucial. But what does that mean exactly? Let's break it down. The glycemic index is a measure of how quickly a food raises your blood sugar. Pure glucose is the reference point, with a score of 100. Foods with a low glycemic index release sugar slowly. High glycemic foods hit your bloodstream fast and hard. Traditionally, foods are considered low glycemic if they score between 0 and 55, moderate between 56 and 69, and high if they're 70 and above. But here's the problem. That scale was created in a world that believed carbs should be the foundation of every diet. Remember the old food pyramid, telling us to eat 8 to 10 servings of grains every single day? That thinking is one of the reasons we now have epidemics of obesity and diabetes around the globe. So, let me give you my numbers. For people over 50 who want to age gracefully and stay insulin sensitive, the ranges should be stricter. Low glycemic, the green zone, is 0 to 25. Moderate is 25 to 40. Anything over 40? That's high. And it's not doing you any favors if you want to keep your brain sharp and your body strong as you age. Now here's the good news. Many of the foods I recommend for healthy aging already fall into the lowest glycemic category. Meat, fish, and eggs, for example, have a glycemic index of 0. They don't raise your... About foods that don't raise blood sugar, meat, fish, and eggs are right there at the top. Their glycemic index is essentially 0. Now technically, if you overeat protein, and your body can convert some of that excess into glucose. So 0 isn't strictly true, but compared to bread, pasta, or sweets, the effect is very, very low. Now let's move to non-starchy vegetables. Even though they're technically made of carbohydrates, they're mostly fiber and water. That means their glycemic index is still extremely low, usually between 10 and 20. These are your leafy greens, cucumbers, zucchini, peppers, and all those vegetables that don't spike your blood sugar, but do give you volume, nutrition, and fiber. Seeds also fall into the low glycemic category, typically between 10 and 35, depending on the type. And then we have berries. Now, berries can range anywhere from 25 to 50 on the glycemic index, and this is where the differences start to matter. Among the berries, blackberries and raspberries are the safest. They're low in sugar, but high in fiber, and that fiber slows everything down, so their glycemic index is only about 25. Raspberries are a little less fibrous, so they're closer to 40. Still fairly safe, but you don't want to overdo them. Strawberries and blueberries come in higher, blueberries especially reaching around 50 on the index. So here's how you can think about it. Blackberries and raspberries, green zone. Strawberries, middle ground. Blueberries, the red zone. That doesn't mean you must eliminate blueberries forever, but if you're pre-diabetic, diabetic, or seriously insulin resistant, it may be wise to limit them. Now let's talk about nuts and seeds. Among the safest in terms of glycemic impact, chia seeds are number 1. Their glycemic index is basically 1. Why? Because they're almost pure fiber, protein, and healthy fats. There's really nothing in there to trigger a blood sugar spike. Then we have flax, hemp, and pumpkin seeds, which come in around 10, extremely low. And among nuts, macadamia, pecans, and almonds also score around 10. A little higher are walnuts, pistachios, and hazelnuts, around 15. At the higher end of this low category, sunflower and sesame seeds sit at about 35. Still relatively low, but not as optimal as chia or flax. Here's something important to note. While sunflower and sesame seeds are still healthy in moderation, they're very high in omega-6 fatty acids. And remember, our modern diet already tips too far toward omega-6 compared to omega-3. So relying too heavily on sunflower and sesame seeds may not help your fatty acid balance the way chia, flax, and walnuts can. So, what are the overall benefits of nuts and seeds? Let's break it down. Brazil nuts, walnuts, pecans, macadamias, chia seeds, flax seeds, and pumpkin seeds are some of the best choices available. They're easy to find, inexpensive compared to many supplements, and pack a huge punch in terms of nutrition. They're high in fiber, which keeps your digestion moving and your gut bacteria fed. They provide healthy fats that protect your brain and your arteries. They contain plant-based protein, which adds satiety and helps muscle repair. They also deliver essential minerals like magnesium, zinc, calcium, and iron. On top of that, you'll find vitamins from the B group, as well as vitamin E, an antioxidant that protects your cells from oxidative damage. And here's another fascinating point. Certain seeds, like chia and flax, provide plant-based omega-3s in the form of alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. Hemp seeds also contain some. Now, your body can convert ALA into EPA and DHA, which are the active forms of omega-3. But the conversion is very inefficient, so you don't want to count on these seeds as your main source. Still, eating them helps tip the balance away from excessive omega-6 and toward a healthier fatty acid ratio overall. Now let's focus on Brazil nuts, because they deserve a special mention. For years in my clinic, I used muscle testing to see how patients responded to different foods. I would have them hold or taste a food, and then we'd check for a change in muscle strength. What I noticed was remarkable. Brazil nuts consistently showed up as a problem. More than 90% of people tested showed some sort of negative response to them. At the time, I couldn't figure out why. I simply told patients to avoid Brazil nuts if their bodies didn't respond well. But later, I learned the reason. Selenium. Brazil nuts are an insanely rich source of selenium. Not just good source. We're talking about 45 times more selenium than the next highest seed or nut, such as chia or sunflower seeds. Here's what that looks like in real numbers. The recommended daily allowance for selenium is only about 55 micrograms. That's a millionth of a gram, an incredibly tiny amount. The toxicity threshold, however, is around 400 micrograms. In other words, just 7 times above the daily allowance, and you're already risking toxicity. Now get this, one single Brazil nut can contain anywhere from 90 to 180 micrograms of selenium. That means one nut provides 1.5 to 3 times the daily requirement. Just 3 nuts, and you're already above the safe limit. This is why Brazil nuts are both powerful and potentially risky. They can give your body selenium, which is necessary for the production of glutathione peroxidase, one of the body's master antioxidant enzymes. But too many Brazil nuts, and suddenly you've crossed the line into toxicity. So the key is moderation. Just 1 Brazil nut a day is enough to cover your selenium needs. Anything beyond that, and you may start doing more harm than good. When people hear that chocolate can actually have health benefits, the first reaction is usually excitement. And yes, that's true, but with some important conditions. Let's talk about dark chocolate, why it's different from regular milk chocolate, and how it interacts with your blood sugar, your brain, and your cardiovascular system. Dark chocolate is rich in compounds called flavonols. These are plant-based antioxidants that have been shown to improve the health of the endothelium, which is the inner lining of your blood vessels. Why is this important? Because the endothelium controls elasticity, how well your blood vessels can expand and contract. Think of your blood vessels as flexible tubes. If they are stiff, it's harder for your heart to pump blood through them. But if they're elastic, blood pressure is easier to regulate, circulation improves, and oxygen delivery throughout the body becomes more efficient. Another benefit of flavonols is that they stimulate the production of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a natural compound that signals your blood vessels to relax and widen. This process, called vasodilation, enhances circulation, lowers blood pressure, and increases blood flow to critical areas such as the brain and extremities. This is why dark chocolate isn't just a treat. It can actually be a functional food when chosen carefully. Better circulation to the brain helps maintain cognitive function as we age. It supports memory, focus, and overall mental sharpness. For many people, a small piece of good quality dark chocolate can be a brain-boosting snack. But not all chocolate is equal. The key difference lies in the cocoa content and the amount of added sugar. As you age, your tolerance for sugar and carbohydrates declines. That's why it becomes more important to focus on foods that deliver nutrients without spiking blood glucose levels. To understand this, let's compare different types of chocolate by looking at three important numbers: total carbs, fiber, and net carbs. Net carbs are simply the total carbohydrates minus the fiber. Fiber isn't digested into glucose, and it slows down sugar absorption. So, the lower the net carbs, the less impact on your blood sugar. We also need to look at added sugars because those drive fructose intake, which can promote fatty liver if consumed in excess. Now let's walk through the spectrum, starting with milk chocolate. A single ounce of milk chocolate contains about 26 grams of total carbohydrates, but only 1 gram of fiber. That leaves 25 grams of net carbs, and out of those, 15 grams are added sugar. This is why milk chocolate is addictive. It delivers a large, fast glucose spike. It's also high in lactose from the milk, which makes the sugar load even heavier. Compare that to 50% dark chocolate. This means half of the bar is cocoa solids and cocoa butter, and the other half is sugar. In an ounce, you get about 18 grams of total carbs, 3 grams of fiber, and 15 grams of net carbs. Of those, 11 grams come from added sugar. It's still sweet, but slightly better than milk chocolate. When we move to 70% dark chocolate, things start to improve significantly. Here, 1 ounce contains 13 grams of total carbs, 4 grams of fiber, and 9 grams of net carbs. Added sugar drops to 7 grams. At this level, you're getting much more cocoa, more antioxidants, more healthy fats, and less sugar. At 85% dark chocolate, the numbers get even better. You're looking at 10 grams of total carbs, 5 grams of fiber, and only 5 grams of net carbs. Added sugar is just 4 grams per ounce. That's a big drop from the 15 grams in milk chocolate. This is why 85% is considered a sweet spot, flavorful enough to enjoy, but low enough in sugar to keep blood glucose stable. Finally, let's consider 90% dark chocolate. This type is very low in sugar. An ounce contains 8 grams of total carbs, 6 grams of fiber, leaving only 2 grams of net carbs. Added sugar? Just 2 grams. At this point, chocolate is more bitter than sweet, but it's the healthiest choice if you're looking for all of the benefits without the sugar spike. Another thing to understand is how the fat in chocolate works. As the cocoa percentage goes up, the amount of cocoa butter increases. Cocoa butter is mostly healthy fat. That fat slows down the absorption of the small amount of sugar that's present, creating a more stable energy release instead of a sudden spike and crash. It also makes dark chocolate more satiating, meaning a small amount satisfies cravings and keeps you full longer. That's why a single ounce of 85% or 90% dark chocolate can feel filling and indulgent, whereas milk chocolate tends to be addictive. You keep reaching for more because of the sugar rush. So, when people ask which chocolate is safe, the answer depends on the cocoa percentage. At 70% and above, you start to get real benefits with a manageable sugar load. At 85% and 90%, you're in the territory where chocolate becomes not just safe, but truly supportive of your health. Food number 9, fermented vegetables. Next up, fermented vegetables like sauerkraut, kimchi, or any homemade pickled veggie. These foods are alive with beneficial bacteria that restore balance in your gut microbiome. Why is that important? Because your gut bacteria influence everything, from your digestion and immunity to your mood and even brain health. Most of your serotonin, the feel-good hormone, is produced in your gut, not your brain. As we age, microbial diversity in the gut naturally declines, especially after antibiotic use. By adding fermented foods, you bring back friendly bacteria that help you absorb nutrients like magnesium and zinc more effectively. They even pre-digest certain compounds, making them easier for your body to use. So a small daily serving of kimchi or sauerkraut can do wonders for your digestion, mood, and long-term vitality. Food number 10, grass-fed liver. And finally, one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, grass-fed liver. I know, liver isn't everyone's favorite, but it is a nutritional powerhouse. It's packed with iron, vitamin B12, folate, B9, and vitamin A, all in highly bioavailable forms your body can actually use. These nutrients are particularly important after age 50, when deficiencies in B vitamins and iron become more common. They support healthy red blood cells, which carry oxygen throughout your body. And they also support your mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside your cells that produce energy. If you don't enjoy the taste of liver, you can find it as a supplement in the form of dried, desiccated liver tablets or capsules. This way, you still reap the benefits without the strong flavor. When combined with the earlier superfoods we've discussed, these 10 foods form a powerful foundation for healthy aging. They help keep your heart pumping, your brain sharp, your digestion smooth, and your energy levels high. But here's the real key. Knowledge only matters if you put it into action. Try adding just one of these foods into your week. Learn a simple recipe. Get comfortable cooking with real, whole ingredients. Over time, these small changes compound into life-changing results. Aging doesn't have to mean decline. With the right foods, it can mean strength, clarity, and vitality well into your later years. So the next time you open your fridge or step into the grocery store, ask yourself, am I choosing foods that simply fill me or foods that truly fuel me? Choose wisely because your future self is depending on it.